Hello and welcome to the first How to Survive Show Hall of Fame mini-sode.
Yeah, a cringy portmanteau there, isn't it?
It is a little bit, but let's explain what we're doing here, Joe. It's Thursday, which is obviously not the normal day for a How to Survive release.
Yep.
And you'll notice that this episode is shorter than our normal output, but don't worry, our Hall of Fame episode is so epic and so important to both our lives and yours that we've stretched it out over 5 days, and it will come in 5 parts. So each part will focus on a different aspect of this year's How to Survive Survivors Hall of Fame. This episode will serve as a sort of introduction, and we'll be talking about the criteria that we're looking for in the survivor that's entering the Survivors Hall of Fame, and we'll be talking about some of the obvious losers of this particular competition.
Other than you.
Nice one, thanks. And some of the also-rans, the people who we wanted to give a shout out to but didn't quite make the top 5.
Honourable mentions.
Yes. Yeah. And then tomorrow, which is Friday, we will have the first of our mini episodes featuring discussion of a runner-up. So number 5, Monday will be number 4, Tuesday will be number 3, and then next Wednesday on the usual release date for your podcast, we will be discussing the top 2 and deciding who gets entry into the How to Survive Survivors Hall of Fame. As we know, Joe, Jason Bourne is already in there. He broke in during the first episode, and we haven't been able to get him out since.
No, and now he's waiting for company.
Yeah, he's waiting.
He's been lonely.
He's always waiting.
Yeah.
He doesn't sleep, he waits.
Yeah, exactly. There'll be all sorts of other fun stuff as well. A nice retrospective on the first year of the How to Survive podcast.
Yes, 50 episodes, Joe. Can you believe it?
Nothing cringy like a clip show or anything like that, but just nice to acknowledge where we've come.
Yeah, and just to warn you, obviously, when we're discussing people who have survived these films, we will be in spoiler territory by that very nature.
Yeah, we're not going into too much detail on the films if we can help it.
Yeah, but we hopefully wouldn't be ruining anyone's enjoyment. I mean, a lot of these people are, the expected people to survive or otherwise.
The best thing to do is take a look at our back catalogue, see if there's anything missing, and go and watch it right now before the day's out, because tomorrow it's going to be back into spoilers again, and we don't want to spoil anything for you.
And so each mini episode that focuses on a character will make clear which film that mini episode is discussing. So if you haven't seen that film, you can avoid it and avoid the spoilers within, should you desire. But just a warning for the rest of this mini episode, we will be discussing in very vague terms most of the films that we've covered.
Yeah, and there will be spoilers. We're not shy about that at this point. You've had your warning, so let's roll on.
So let's get started. This is the introduction episode, the mini-sode. So when we started discussing who we thought should enter the How to Survive Survivors Hall of Fame, Joe, what were we looking for?
The major criterion was, did they survive?
Yes, so they had to survive the film.
Yes.
And it didn't matter if, for example, the protagonist of Friday the 13th, she survives Friday the 13th, and then she dies in the opening scene of Friday the 13th Part 2, very tragically.
Yes.
So she could have been entered for Friday the 13th Part 1.
Yes, but she wasn't, was she?
But she wasn't.
We'll explain that later.
Yes.
The next criterion is, did they make the most of their opportunities to escape or incapacitate their foe?
Yes.
So, what we like is not people who sort of run into the kitchen and don't grab a knife. Yeah, we want them to grab a knife and ideally a chainsaw.
Yeah. Well, it's a constant bugbear, isn't it, when we're discussing how we would survive in the films we cover, that often, there's the scuffle between the final survivor and their would-be killer, and the villain lies prone on the floor, and instead of finishing the job, the survivor runs away or tries to hide, when they should just finish the job and, save themselves the trouble. And so, special consideration went to those survivors who displayed this trait.
Yeah.
And so what else were we looking for?
Well, another factor that certainly helps, did they help others to survive?
Yeah.
Now, what we like is a team player. And obviously, it's not always going to be the case. There are movies where that opportunity won't arise. For instance, we've not covered it, but if Castaway came up, he wouldn't be able to help anyone else survive because he's the only person in the film, essentially. Exactly. But certainly, if they don't climb over people in order to get their own survival, that certainly helps.
Yeah, so helping others helps yourself.
Yes, and that doesn't mean you can't injure your foes or kill your foes if they're trying to kill you, but just do the best to help your teammates.
Yeah. And so what was the final criteria that we were looking for?
The last thing we want to consider is whether they put themselves in danger, because obviously that's a big no-no when it comes to survival.
Yeah, I mean, like each of the characters in these films, by their very nature, will be in danger.
Yes.
But it's whether or not they put themselves in excessive danger, really, isn't it?
Yes, repeatedly and for little gain.
Yes.
There are characters where entering danger certainly carries a risk, but the reward often outweighs that.
Yes.
And we'll probably discuss that in the next few days.
Yes. So let's move on, Joe, to some of the people who didn't make it.
Yeah.
So
what you've written here for one bullet point is cast of Friday the 13th franchise.
Yes.
You wouldn't have any of them?
No.
Not even the woman who decapitates... her name is Alice. She decapitates Pamela Voorhees with a machete.
Yeah, but then, we had myriad problems with her attempts to survive.
That's true.
That was a great harvest of survival ideas, and all the way back in the very first episode of How to Survive, 50 weeks ago, Joe. I mean, like I've grouped this is obviously the losers, basically.
Yeah.
The very worst survivors that we encountered, and a special tip of the hat to basically everyone who is in any Friday the 13th movie.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
The next one we got is the family, the entire family in The Witch. And I'll assume we're excluding Thomasin from this because she does ostensibly survive, though she does give her soul to the devil in order to do so.
There's nothing in the rules that says that giving your soul to the devil in order to survive is a contravention of any sort of
That's true.
rule.
But I would say that is an unnecessary danger. But we can come to that when we discuss Thomasin in a minute.
Yeah.
But the family,
they're ill-equipped, basically, aren't they?
Exactly.
And they move themselves out into the wilderness
where the only thing they could live on was corn, and by killing animals.
Yeah.
And yet they were completely unable to grow corn or kill animals, and were scared of witches to a fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Another family that didn't fare too well in a film that we covered was the family in Krampus. Way back in episode 20. That was our Christmas horror movie.
Yeah.
And they were basically, infighting, lack of teamwork,
Lack of Christmas spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it did for them in the end.
Yeah, and they ended up, you may recall, trapped in a snow globe.
Yeah.
Yeah. The next one we got is the Willow Creek couple.
So this was quite a recent film that we covered.
Yeah.
The Bigfoot hunters.
Yes. Both captured by Bigfoot.
Yeah. Didn't end well for them.
No.
I mean, it's implicit and it's off screen, but I mean, they're dead.
Well, one of them may have survived, but
maybe.
Oof. And the last big loser is the survivalist from the movie The Survivalist, who dies, doesn't he?
Yes,
Doesn't survive.
he does,
Yeah. The opposite of survival.
Yeah. Pierce's fertilizer. So
yeah, Pierce's fertilizer. We should have that monogrammed on a.
That's
How
on
to
the
Survive blazers.
Yeah, no, that's the that's inside of the collar of the How to Survive tie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we've got the also rans. These are the honourable mentions. People who did survive, but we decided they weren't quite fit to enter the Hall of Fame this year.
Yeah, so maybe I'll rattle off a few names, Joe. You tell me why they were good and why they were bad.
Okay.
So first up, we've got Thomasin from The Witch, as we mentioned earlier.
I don't think she's suitable, mostly because she does sell her soul to the devil, and she doesn't do a lot to help the people around her.
That's fair, yeah.
In fact, she does kill her mother.
Yes, yes, she does. Paul from Misery?
He does a very good job, but ultimately Annie, who has him prisoner, keeps outsmarting him every time he tries to poison her or trick her. She's just one step ahead, and the only way he can beat her in the end is by basically bludgeoning her, which he could have done at the start. Yeah,
that's true. Chief Brody from Jaws,
a good survivor, but not altogether has his wits about him all the time. He's
Hmm.
Scared of water.
It's the most famous line of the film is, "We're going to need a bigger boat." What does he do about it?
Nothing.
Nothing.
And he does need the help of a crazy old man and a biology expert to help him survive.
Although they're not that much help in the moment.
No, one of them dies and one of them hides in coral.
Yeah.
So he does all right, but ultimately it's a team effort.
He'd probably be 6th or 7th maybe in the list.
Yeah.
Overall. Next up we got Arthur O'Dwyer from Bone Tomahawk.
Yeah, we were discussing this off air.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would have him.
No?
I think he's brought along for the journey, isn't he? Really?
Yeah, but you say that, but then in the end he does mount a one-man assault on the cannibal camp with a broken leg.
True. And he climbs that mountain with a broken leg also.
So that's good.
It's admirable, but he didn't get there on his own. He needed the help of the sheriff and Buddy and Matthew Fox.
Kevin McAllister from Home Alone.
Yeah, a very good survivor and a model survivor, really.
Yeah, but he does once again require rescuing.
Yes,
in the end
from the old man.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jen from Backcountry.
Yeah.
So this one was one we debated because obviously she does survive. She does
against the odds as well.
Against the odds, mostly on her own against a vicious bear, but she does come out pretty badly from it, Joe.
Yeah.
And as one of the criteria is saying, did they avoid putting themselves in danger? I mean, for one thing, they could have not gone to the park in the first place.
Yep.
But mostly, no, she doesn't avoid putting herself in danger, given that she ends up with a broken leg and, lots of flesh hanging off her.
Yes. And minus a boyfriend.
Yes. Next up, we've got Hugh Glass from The Revenant.
Yeah. Who does survive the film.
Yes.
He's the only character in the film to survive the film.
He may die within seconds of the film ending.
Yeah. Mortally wounded. So that's basically why... I mean, we can't assume he does die.
Yeah.
Because he survived a lot already.
Yeah.
But it doesn't look good for him.
No, and again... in terms of putting themselves in danger.
Yeah, he's the model of what not to do.
Yeah. Then we've got the assorted casts, the various survivors from the Towering Inferno and Poseidon Adventure films, which were the classic disaster movies that we covered back to back.
Yeah, the 70s disasters. Now, the reason I don't think any of the characters from those should be in is because it was very much a group effort.
Yeah, it was, yeah. There's all sorts of people doing all sorts of things.
An ensemble cast of dozens.
Yes.
And indeed, the person in Poseidon Adventure who does most work is the character played by Gene Hackman, who kills himself at the end. So,
yes, of course, yeah.
So they can't rightly be termed good survivors when it was all down to him.
Yeah, and you can't. Yeah, for example, you can't have another member of the Poseidon Adventure group because it was Gene Hackman. It was the Reverend's, impetus that led them all to survival in the first place.
Exactly. And Towering Inferno, it was a clusterfuck.
Yeah. Yeah. Next up, we've got Michelle from 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Yeah, I do like Michelle, and had it just been her against Howard, then maybe it would have been a contender.
I mean, she does bring down an alien dropship single-handedly with a very lucky Molotov cocktail.
I think because I don't like that part of the film, it sticks in my craw.
Yeah. I would say that she does herself a disservice by then driving off to single-handedly fight a war against the aliens.
Yes. Anyone who's got any experience fighting aliens, she signs up straight away, having spent 10 seconds fighting aliens.
Let me just look at what we look at for in a survivor criteria again. Did they avoid putting themselves in danger? I noticed it doesn't have a caveat for involving yourself unnecessarily in an alien war.
Sure.
Next up, we've got Maddie from Hush.
She does a very good job in fighting against the man. I mean, her friends
against all odds.
Exactly. The big problem for her is she did put herself in danger by moving into the deepest part of the woods in complete seclusion when she is deaf and mute.
Yes.
Yeah.
Next, we've got Julia's Eyes.
Julia
from Julia's Eyes.
Yeah, Julia from Julia's Eyes. Julia,
yeah. Blind or eventually blind Julia.
Yep.
What were your thoughts?
Again, she does a lot to sort of survive Angel's manipulation and mind games, and she even fights him against a good few stabs in. But she does require rescuing by the police at the end of the film. that she does call them. So she's a very good contender, a very, very fine contender, and probably would be in the top 10, I think.
Sydney from Scream 2?
Yeah. Can't really argue that she should be a survivor, because she does survive.
Yeah.
Problem is, I guess, I don't really like Scream that much.
Okay. Well, she, again, she relies on the intervention of other people.
It takes Gail Weathers to come in and distract her,
Yeah.
But she's the one who fires the final shots.
Yes.
Yeah.
In echoing the ending of Scream 1.
I think had she worked out who the killers were herself and had the upper hand at any point, but, hers is more of a reactionary defense rather than a preventative measure.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah. And then finally, we've got M from Coherence.
Yeah, she didn't quite make it this time around. And probably never will again, because
it's a controversial.
I don't think she's in any other films. So
it's a controversial choice, this, isn't it? Because the ending of the film seems to suggest that she's been rumbled somewhat.
Yeah, I mean the decision she basically made is logical. The one which says go and find a plane of reality where the coherence event hasn't happened, and therefore you'll survive. Because no one will know who you are. But she does require that does require her to kill an equivalent of her in that reality.
Yeah.
And it doesn't play out, does it? It doesn't pan out for her, because it turns out there are many, at least more than one M in that reality. I think that's the decision we can reach from the end of that film.
Yeah. So those are the also rans.
Yeah, the people who didn't quite cut it.
Yeah, and so we'll be back again tomorrow with Survivor number 5, counting down.
So you may be able to work out who it could be. There'll be a shortlist forming in your mind at the moment about who could be at number 5.
Yeah.
And of course, if you do have any thoughts about the people who didn't make it, maybe you want to appeal at the last moment. I mean, we might reconsider. Probably won't, but we might. The Twitter is at HowToSurvivePod. That's the quickest way to get in touch. Or you might want to email HowToSurviveShow@gmail.com. We always read the emails. And of course, with the Hall of Fame coming up, we'd love to hear from you as a celebration of the year so far. So thank you very much indeed, and we'll see you tomorrow. Hello and welcome to the second mini-sode. Perhaps we could call it the Survivor-sode, Chris. What do you think about that?
Not bad.
Yeah, episode 2 of the 5 Survivor-sodes, celebrating this year's How to Survive Survivors Hall of Fame. And I'm sure from that theme music, you've worked out which film today's character comes from.
You may have gotten that sinking feeling.
Yeah.
You may have plucked the name out of thin air. Like a rose, you might pluck a flower. She's called Rose. It's Rose DeWitt from Titanic.
Yeah. Hello, Rose.
Hi.
I'm Joe, and
paint me like one of your survivors.
I'm Joe, and I'm joined as ever by Chris. Hello.
Hi.
This is number 5 in our annual countdown to the number 1 survivor of the year. Looking back on the last year's films. And of course, Rose DeWitt was a great survivor in the movie Titanic, the 1997 James Cameron film Titanic. Yeah, we covered it all the way back in episode 10, Joe. That was 40 weeks ago. Yeah, and of course, if you haven't heard that episode yet, do go back and listen to it. It's one of the fan favourites, I think. Always popular on the downloads. So there's a good chance you have heard it. But if you haven't, now's your chance. So what do we think of Rose DeWitt and her survival acumen? Well, she certainly does a lot, doesn't she? She overcomes a lot. Yeah. Methods of survival she takes. Obviously, the big one, the biggie, is climbing on that door. Yeah, so it's making the most of an opportunity there, really, isn't she? I mean, should we dive straight into the big controversy of her survival? Because it's very much at the expense of Jack, isn't it? Yes. I mean, is it his sacrifice or is it her opportunism? Well, when discussing our own survival ideas, we follow a sort of set of basic rules, and one of those rules is you have to help others if you can. Yep. And it's debatable whether or not she does that. Yeah, because it has been shown through various Mythbusters and things like that. But it would have been possible for them to share the door.
Yeah, and they could have both floated, both potentially have been rescued. But they may have frozen to death before that. So maybe she was right, you know. The Machiavellian,
she made a value judgment.
Yeah, Machiavellian instinct took over, and she took the whole door for herself.
Yeah.
Rewinding to the sort of events of the film, you know, she goes from basically being suicidal to running through the ship, rescuing various people, rescuing Jack, being rescued by Jack, getting into fights, spitting in men's faces,
getting shot at.
It's a busy evening for her, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. A night to remember.
Yeah, and she does, Joe. She does remember it for her whole life.
Yeah,
as we see in the sort of present day elements of the film.
Yeah.
Is this the longest eventual survivor after the danger has surpassed of any character that we've covered?
I dare say,
because it's approaching, 90 years.
So we want to check how old she is, Chris. Can you go on the James Cameron Titanic Wikia, which actually exists?
So she's 17 during the sinking of the Titanic. She's 17 years old.
Kate Winslet was never 17 when she filmed that.
And then she returned 84 years later to the site of the shipwreck at the age of 101. So that's an 84-year survival.
Very good indeed.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've got anyone who can rival that.
Well, maybe.
Well, the only way I think it could happen is if there was a baby who survived.
Yeah. Or if there was some way for a survivor who may or may not appear later on this list to have been frozen in some sort of stasis for an amount of time. But who could say, Joe? Who could say? But yeah, she lives to a ripe old age.
Yeah.
And clearly has a very fulfilling life.
Yeah. Well done.
As we see by her various photos and trinkets.
She kept that promise to Jack, who ultimately proved to be the most important part of her life because she's reunited with him in the afterlife.
Yes. Her poor husband and father of her children. But yeah, she... So...
But she... No, we already mentioned she took the opportunity and got on the door.
Yeah.
She took another opportunity. She got out of a relationship with a violently abusive fiancé.
Yes.
He hit her. He shot at her. Spat at her. Not a nice guy.
No.
Not a sort of lifestyle that would be conducive to a healthy and happy life.
No. And clearly that lifestyle has led them into situations like being on the Titanic when it sank.
Exactly.
But could she have survived any better, Joe, than she did in the film?
I think so, and I think that's why she hasn't made it into this year's Hall of Fame.
Okay, please explain.
Well, the big thing, and this is a clanger when it comes to survival.
Yeah.
We say take all the opportunities you can.
Yeah.
And she has a good opportunity. She's in a lifeboat.
Yeah.
And as it's being lowered, she jumps back onto the sinking ship.
Dangerous.
Yeah. And that, although she survives, she couldn't have known that at the time.
No.
She took her life in her hands.
Yeah.
And it's only because of Jack's quick thinking that she does survive.
I mean, he worked very hard to get her on that boat
in the first place.
And then she's just throwing away his good efforts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for that reason, her selfishness has cost her a place in the 2016's How to Survivors Hall of Fame. And
she left the boat because of her love for Jack. And we know from the eventual events of the film that was futile because Jack is doomed.
Yeah, he would have survived. We said this before. He would probably have survived if she hadn't been there. Yeah. Because he could have got on the door himself.
Yeah.
He knew what he was doing. He was street smart. He's
explaining to her, these are the sorts of reasons that Rose isn't in our number one.
Yeah.
I mean, she's in the top 5 because of longevity.
Yes.
Fair play to her. But, when the ship is sinking, it's Jack who's shouting out, it's going to pull us under, you need to hold on to this, we need to do this.
Get on the door.
Get on the door, yeah. Without that, we have no evidence, basically, that Rose is going to be able to do any of those things without his help. And that's why Rose is number 5 in our countdown of the best survivors of the last 50 episodes.
Would you have put Jack in the best would-be survivor had he survived?
I think he would be up there, yeah. I think
quite handy, isn't he?
Yeah, he proves himself in a number of ways. Yeah.
So as if you've got thoughts on today's Spotlight Survivor, Rose DeWitt, do send a tweet to @HowToSurvivePod or send an email to HowToSurviveShow@gmail.com.
Maybe you think she should have been higher. Maybe you think that she shouldn't have been there at all.
Yeah, maybe she should have gone down with the Titanic. So we're taking a break for the weekend. Our throats need a break. We'll be back on Monday. with number 4 in our countdown for this year's How to Survive Survivors Hall of Fame. Who will it be, Chris? Who do you think?
Whoever it is, I'm pretty sure, Joe, he'll have gone through an intense level of physical punishment. His heart will have been pounding.
Yeah.
I doubt he's got a wink of sleep.
Yeah.
And, you know, he never even so much as stops to catch his breath the whole duration of the film. And you'll have to wait until Monday to find out who we're talking about.
That narrows it down quite a lot.
Is that you? Is that you, Joe Seville?
It is me. Hello. Welcome again to the 3rd Surviversode.
Yeah. That's the term that we coined last Friday. We're sticking with it.
Yep. This is number 4. This is number 3 in the Survivorsodes, but it is character number 4 in our countdown for the inaugural How to Survive Survivors Hall of Fame. And as you mentioned, is that you, Chev Chelios?
Yes, today we are covering Chev Chelios. Chev Chelios from Crank is our 4th best survivor of the last year in terms of the films that we've covered. And you might be thinking, but that's mad. Chev Chelios, he's in Crank. He's just, a silly action star. Yes, you're right. That's correct. But we need to take into account, Joe, the sheer amount of physical harm he goes through, the punishment that his body gets subjected to through the course of Crank, which we covered in episode 30. If you haven't seen Crank, then go see it. It's good fun and also a bit shit, but pretty good.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
It's basically the best film ever if you're 14.
Yes,
and a boy.
Exactly. A film made by 14-year-olds for 14-year-olds.
So yeah, Chev Chelios, played by Jason Statham. He is a hitman for the mob who has a moral crisis, a crisis of conscience, and decides that he's going to give up the life of crime. But oh no, his employers, they don't like that. So they inject him with a poison, Joe, which means that if he doesn't continue to produce adrenaline at a constant rate, his heart will eventually stop.
Exactly. And with that in mind, these are the methods he employs to survive. Fighting with gangs, civilians, doctors, and police.
Yeah, he takes the policeman's gun, famously. He runs through a hospital in a hospital gown, brandishing a gun at people. He has a fight in a pool bar with a huge number of...
After shouting a racist epithet in what is ostensibly a black bar.
Yeah, and also just decides to get into fights, road rage, all those sorts of things.
Speeding.
Yeah.
A lot of speeding. Drug taking.
Yeah.
At one point, he puts his hand in a waffle iron.
Yes.
I can't think that would be the most useful.
Well, it'd definitely get the adrenaline pumping.
It would, yeah. He shoots a lot of people.
Yeah.
And gets shot at in turn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that would get your adrenaline up, shooting people? If you're a hitman, I mean.
Yeah, but...
I think we discussed this. It's bread and butter to him.
Yeah, that's the thing, yeah. Well, I mean, when we're talking about could he have done it any better, we discussed in the episode that maybe he should have tried exciting things that weren't, strictly related to his day job, because it's a busman's holiday for him, basically.
Exactly. He interrogates a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's quite exciting if you're into that sort of thing.
Yeah, he cuts a man's hand off in an alleyway.
Nasty.
Yeah. He obviously, in a scene that's one of the most memorable of the film, commits a lewd public sex act with his girlfriend.
Yes.
And he also, in this, it's not specific to producing adrenaline, but he forms some strategic partnerships which later bear fruit in the film's climactic sequence.
Exactly.
And at the end of that sequence, Joe, let's not forget, he falls probably several thousand feet out of a helicopter, lands on a moving vehicle, bounces into the road, and then the final shot of the film is his eyes opening, proving that he's still alive and his heart beating.
Yes. What will stop Chev Chelios?
Well, clearly not any of those things. And that is why we had to include him at number 4 in our list, because no other survivor in all of the films that we've covered has gone through that sheer level of physical punishment and come out of it.
I'd agree with that. Although Hugh Glass, similar level of punishment?
Similar? Did he fall? How many feet did...
Well, he fell off a cliff.
Yeah, that's maybe 100 feet.
I'd say 500 feet.
1,000 feet, did you say?
1,000 feet.
Well, yeah, it was a big cliff, yeah. I'd still say that Chev Chelios, in terms of the beating that he takes is unmatched in the films that we've covered.
Hugh Glass was mauled by a bear.
Chev Chelios fell out of a helicopter.
Yeah, but you've already used that trump. You said no one took a beating. Like
Chev Chelios falling out of a helicopter is worth 10 bears.
Fair enough. I can't argue with you. Hugh Glass didn't survive in the end,
No.
did he? So
Well,
it's a moot point.
May have done or may not.
Well, yeah, it's
it's
a question.
ambiguous.
Yeah.
But could Chev Chelios have survived in a better way, Joe? What did we discuss when we were talking about the film?
I seem to remember, aside from doing things like busman's holiday stuff, like killing people, which wouldn't raise your pulse if you do it all day.
Yeah, we suggested some other things.
Yeah, steadily build up excitement levels rather than just going straight flat out.
Yeah, because that's what he does basically, isn't it? Speed and
where do you go from there?
Yeah, exactly. You take a load of drugs, get into a lot of fights. He should build up. Maybe start by
playing a scary PlayStation game.
Yeah, exactly. Watching a horror movie.
Yeah.
Listening to the How to Survive podcast. That'll get your blood pumping any day. There are a lot of minor things that you can slowly ramp up the tension. So by the time that he's falling out of helicopters, his threshold for adrenaline is still at a manageable level.
I'd agree with that. Another thing to do is avoid putting yourself in danger, which is in fact one of the criteria we considered in more depth when we are deciding who should go in the Hall of Fame.
Yes.
And he does not avoid putting himself in danger.
No.
And we did mention in this sort of first Survive-isode, if you indulge me that calling that again, I like the word.
Yeah.
A fair risk to a fair reward is okay. But would you say riding a motorbike in what can only be described as a crucifix position, stood on the saddle with your arms out, is necessarily the best way to get your heart racing?
Well, that's the problem that he's set himself by starting so high initially, is that he needs to resort to bigger and bigger stunts in order to raise his adrenaline level.
And in a way, he probably would have kept going and ramping it up more and more until he fell out of a helicopter.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is exactly what he did.
Yeah.
And so for that reason, for going at it too hard, not pacing himself, we can't have Chev Chelios in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
He could be in next year for Crank 2, but I don't know if he survives that.
Yeah, and we don't know if we're going to cover it just yet.
Don't rule it out.
Yeah. But he did very well. And he did it all off on his own back, basically, Joe. He, like we said, he enlisted some people's help, but that was a strategic partnership that he forged himself through his own actions. That's not, someone who's innately there to help him.
No, exactly.
And so for that reason, he features highly in our countdown of the best survivors of the last year. And he's at number 4.
Yeah.
So that's Chev Chelios from Crank.
So, listener, do you agree? Should Chev Chelios be at number 4? Perhaps you'd like to see him higher or lower. Perhaps you think that movie was so reprehensible, I don't think he should even be considered.
But if so, then maybe you should get in touch and tell us what you think on Twitter. At HowToSurvivePod is the Twitter handle, and you can get in touch that way.
Or via email on howtosurviveshow@gmail.com. And we'd love to hear from you. And with just 2 days until the How to Survive Survivors Hall of Fame, now is the exact time you should be getting in touch and telling us what you want us to talk about on that show. Who should be there? Who should be number 1? Tune in tomorrow for the next Survive-isode. And until then,
let's science the shit out of this thing. Send me to Mars and call me a botanist. It's the How to Survive Survive-isode 4.
Survive-isode 4 and countdown number 3.
Yeah, we've made this difficult on ourselves, haven't we?
Yes.
But yeah, it's the How to Survive mini episode. It's the final one before we reveal the top 2.
Mm-hmm. On the bumper edition of the How to Survive Survivors Hall of Fame podcasts. We've done a Friday the 13th and got so tied up in our own mythology that it's basically inaccessible.
Yeah, but it's if you can still follow where we're at, we're counting down our favourite survivors of the last 50 films, and we're at number 3. So bronze medal goes to
Step Forward, Mark Watney.
Yes, that's right. It's Mark Watney from The Martian. Of course, we covered this back in episode 14. Played by Matt Damon, Mark Watney is the stranded botanist
who was sent to Mars on a botany mission as part of a wider science exploration of Mars, and was left behind after an accident.
Yeah.
Thought dead by his crew, who flew off at high speed, because that's how fast, spaceships go.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until they were halfway back to Earth that they found out he was actually alive.
Yeah.
And he used his ingenuity to harvest potatoes, which were his main source of survival, as well as finding the Pathfinder from the 90s, the probe, and driving it and various other equipment across Mars to fly a launch shuttle from Mars into orbit, where he was picked up by his returning crew, which must have been over a year and a half later.
Yeah. So, I mean, this, in terms of the survival efforts that we've covered, this is the longest term survival effort, that's ongoing that we've covered. Obviously Rose from Titanic, who came 5th in our list of survivors.
Sure.
She survived the longest following the incident, but the actual incident itself, which required the survival skills, I think Mark Watney's trumps everyone else's that we've covered, because he has to be on basically constant alert for years in order to survive.
But it's not specified how long. I brought it up yesterday, and I'm bringing it up again today. Hugh Glass. How long was he on his mission of survival?
I think that was months rather than, weeks or months rather than years. Whereas Mark Watney, it's a long time for him. And, surviving basically due to his well of limitless optimism.
Yeah.
And his scientific acumen.
Yeah, and disco music.
Yeah, the disco music. Yeah, that's a feature of the film that often gets overlooked. Maybe it played a role in his survival until we see The Martian 2 and analyse his, ability to survive without disco music.
Yeah.
We won't know.
It is very much Jason Bourne in space, isn't it? Because, we're seeing Matt Damon as a character who can just manipulate anything he wants out of his surroundings in order to get... he takes advantage of everything. We talk about taking opportunities, and we say a character should always take the opportunities that are presented to them. Yeah. And Mark Watney does that in spades.
Well, yeah, you're right. When we discussed the film originally, we were saying that it's his indefatigable spirit that helps carry him through as much as his knowledge and his scientific brain. Because it's all well and good having the knowledge, Joe, but if you don't have the will to apply it and to see yourself through, the long-term survival situation, then you're not going to survive.
Exactly it. Keeping a stiff upper lip.
Yeah.
Could he have done better?
I think we're in agreement that he could have done. Perhaps we should touch upon the most famous result from our coverage of The Martian. This is an internationally accepted, philosophical debate.
Yeah.
Now, and that is, of course, Watney's index. We're always referring to Watney's index.
I'm not even sure, by the way, it is an index.
Listen, it's Watney's index, right?
Okay,
that's what it's called.
Yeah.
So Mark Watney, Watney's index is the extent to which a survival tactic prioritizes short-term survival over long-term. So, for example, in the film, he eats a lot of potatoes, which in the short term he needs the sustenance in order to survive.
Yeah, fine.
But long-term, he's going to have all sorts of health problems from eating so many carbohydrates on a constant basis for years.
Yeah.
There are his only food source.
So he can't be criticised too heavily.
No.
But maybe he shouldn't have wolfed down all that ketchup so quickly.
Yeah, well, exactly, yeah.
Also high carb, so... Is that what they send people to Mars with now? Sugar?
Now? You mean 20 years in the future?
Yeah.
He basically survives due to potatoes, and he embarks on some trips across the Martian landscape in order to get supplies and to make contact with rovers and eventually to escape.
Yeah, and he does put himself in danger. He straps in a nuclear reactor into his car with him.
Yeah.
Which is dangerous.
Mm.
And we said, when we talk about Chelios, you should always take a risk if it's measured and if it results in a, reward.
Yeah, I mean, the risk here, though, is certain death.
Yes.
Like, is in the risk of inaction, we should say.
Yeah.
Is certain death.
So he can't be, criticised too heavily, once again, for what he does.
Mm. He basically, as we said when we were covering the film originally, in episode 14, does everything that he needs to survive.
Yeah.
And there's very limited advice that we could give him because everything that he does is the right thing.
The only thing I'd quibble is his choice to use what can only be described as the Iron Man method. You may remember towards the end of the film, when he's linking up with Ares 3,
yes,
he's basically flying loose in space in his probe and has to link up with them, and he decides to cut a hole in his glove and use the escaping air to push himself towards Jessica Chastain's character, the captain. Which in the book, basically they rule it out because it's obviously mental. It would never work. I don't know whether they went through science checks and made it into the film on that basis, or they just used it because it looked cinematic.
Yeah, I suspect it might be the latter.
Yeah.
But we have to just take whatever's in the film as rote.
Yeah, but it does save him. So he has the last laugh, doesn't he?
Yeah, exactly. He very much does because he survives.
Yeah.
And that is why he is number 3, Joe. But the reason he isn't in the top 2, it's very simple, and that's because for all of his efforts on Mars, the potatoes, the travelling, the building of his habitat, the looking after himself physically, mentally, his well-being, all that sort of thing, he is doomed without the help of others.
Yeah.
100%.
He needs the Ares 3 crew to come and save him.
Exactly. He can't get back home without them.
Yeah, he's basically a baby, isn't he?
Yeah. A little worm.
Mars worm.
Little Martian worm.
You know what? Let's reconsider. Yeah. He's out of the top 5. I'm bringing in Hugh Glass.
You're a big advocate of Glass.
I like Hugh Glass.
But no, Joe, the ratings are final.
Yeah.
And Mark Watney gets the bronze medal in the How to Survive Survivors Hall of Fame 2016.
Well done to him.
Yes. And so who does that leave, Joe? I'm sure the listeners have their own thoughts as to who would be in their top 2, and they should let us know on Twitter. The Twitter handle is, of course, @HowToSurvivePod. Today is Tuesday. Tomorrow, if you're listening on the day of release, will be Wednesday, and that's when we will release the final Survivor-sode, part 5 of the How to Survive Survivors Hall of Fame anthology.
Yeah. And astute listeners and fans will have put together their own shortlist, which may include, people like David Levinson from Independence Day Resurgence, or Sally from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or
James Bond,
or Elias in Goodnight Mummy.
Maybe.
We'll have to tune in tomorrow and find out. Looking forward to seeing you then, Chris. And of course, if the listeners do want to have any suggestions for who they think should be number 1, @HowToSurviveShow on Twitter, or HowToSurviveShow@gmail.com on the email. Looking forward to seeing you there tomorrow, Chris. And looking forward to seeing me too, as always.
So, get in touch on Twitter and let us know your next suggestions for the top 2 survivors, because we'd really like to know. Hello and welcome. It's episode 50 of the How to Survive podcast. And of course, over the last week, we've been building up to this, the final in our series of Survivor-sodes. And we are finally ready to unveil who will be crowned our How to Survive Survivor of the Year and enter into the Survivors Hall of Fame.
But not before we first deliberate over the decision and discuss at length everything that's come before across the last 50 episodes.
Yeah. I've been listening along with everyone else as every episode drops each morning, and thanks for everyone's feedback. Anyone who's tweeted in or emailed in, your feedback is very much appreciated, and we like reading your comments.
Well, I haven't had a chance to catch the episodes, Chris, so can you recap for me who were the last 5?
Well, we started obviously, Joe, with the first mini-sode back on Thursday, which was all about just general How to Survive thoughts. We talked through some of our least favourite survivors, and some of the also-rans, the runners-up. And then on Friday, the first mini-sode, that focused on Rose DeWitt, obviously from
Titanic.
And we discussed, she was good, but she relied a lot on Jack. She was there mainly because the longevity of her life. She was 17 when the Titanic sunk, and she lived to the ripe old age of 101, and clearly had a very fulfilled life. And then we rested over the weekend to really deliberate, and of course the number 4 on our countdown was Chev Chelios from Crank.
Is that you, Chev Chelios? Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. He's in at number 4, and we wanted him in there just because of the sheer amount of physical punishment the man takes over the course of Crank. Number 3, of course, yesterday. On Tuesday, we were talking about Mark Watney from The Martian, who survived all that time in an arid, dusty landscape.
Much like the one we're currently in. Very, very hot.
Yes, it is very hot. We're recording quite late at night. If you think that the sun going down has cooled the place down, you'd be very wrong. So here we are. It is finally the 5th of our Survivor-sodes, making up this episode 50 bonanza.
And the official How to Survive Survivors Hall of Fame 2016.
Yes, and so before we get to our top 2, you wanted to bring up some stats and some
vital statistics.
About the last 49 films that we've covered.
Sure. Chris, did you know we've recorded in 5 different locations?
Really?
Yeah. That's one for the listeners there, so behind the curtain, behind the microphone.
Yeah.
Okay, quiz time.
Play along at home.
Do you think most of our survivors have been men or women?
Scrolling back through the list of survivors in my head, I would estimate that most of them have been women.
Well, one of the categories I didn't mention, there were only 3. Children.
Right, okay.
There have been 7 children who survived our films.
Okay.
So looking back on The Shining and Goodnight Mummy, things like that. There have been 7 men.
Only 7 men?
Only 7 men. I won't go through and name them all, because that would, be laborious.
Yeah.
But, there have been 13 women.
Okay, right.
And I'm talking solo survivors here.
Yes.
Now, of course, something like Jurassic World, there's one of each. So it kind of cancels each other out.
Yeah.
But maybe we'll talk about teams a little later on in this show. But, an interesting overview of the calibre. So it pays to be a woman in the world of movie survival.
Yeah. So How to Survive golden tip is be a woman.
Yeah, exactly.
If you find yourself in a movie, in a survival situation, be a woman.
Yeah, unless you're making a movie. We have only covered one film with a female director. And she was a co-director.
Really?
Yep. That was Goodnight Mummy.
I see. Right.
I see.
Yeah.
Every other film we've covered has had a male director.
Wow. That is a sad indictment of the state of the film industry.
Exactly. So maybe we should remedy that for the next year.
Okay.
Every film will be a female-directed movie.
Yeah, and in 6 weeks' time, it will be the end of the How to Survive podcast.
You're saying that because there's so few female-directed movies, not because you hate female-directed movies, I take it.
Yeah.
Speaking of directors, Chris, who do you think we've covered the most?
Is it Wes Craven?
Wes Craven's got 2.
Okay.
And he's tied for first place.
Oh, is it with Ridley Scott?
Ridley Scott's got 2.
Okay.
So have 3 others.
3 others?
Yeah.
Oh, God. Okay. Sean S. Cunningham?
No, he's only 1.
Who's the guy who did 2 Friday the 13th movies?
I'll give you it. It's Steve Miner.
Steve Miner, that was it. That was the name that I was reaching for. Okay. James Cameron?
Yes. Correct.
And one more?
One more, yeah.
I
I don't think you'll get it. I'll put you out your misery. It was Irwin Allen. for the back-to-back
Of course.
Poseidon Adventure Towering Inferno.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So there you go. So I've chronologically sorted the films, Chris.
Okay.
We've got one from 1972, two from 1974, one from 75, one from 77, two from 78, one from 79, two from 80, one from 81, one from 82, one from 84, two from 85. Is this interesting to you?
Right, text in.
Yeah.
tweet.
I'm going to keep going. One from 86, one from 88, two from 90. I'm going to stop there because there's a simple question. Which year do you think we've featured the most movies from?
Oh, God.
Bearing in mind it spreads from 1972.
2015.
It is 2015.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
9 films.
Nice, I thought so.
2016 following close behind with 6.
Okay, it's because we're hip.
I imagine by year's end that would have gone up.
Yeah, eclipsed 2015.
Yeah, so there you go. And the final question in the How to Survive Survivors Hall of Fame quiz of the year.
Yeah.
What sort of person have the survivors had to overcome?
Okay. Do you mean like serial killer?
Nope. I've narrowed it down to 4 categories.
Okay.
Man, woman, dead person,
Okay.
and non-human.
Right, okay.
How many dead people have there been?
Well, are we counting 28 days later?
That's written in italics, so I've put it as a questionable thing because they're not strictly dead.
Yeah. I'm not sure. So is it anything other than zombie movies?
Yeah.
Dead things?
Dead people.
Don't know.
Chucky.
Right, okay.
I'm going to take him as a dead person.
Yeah, okay.
Because the body's dead.
Yeah.
Jason Voorhees.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, your favourite.
Yeah.
And Freddy Krueger.
Right. And Dawn of the Dead.
And Dawn of the Dead body, I've got that. Yeah,
and 28 days later, yeah.
Yep.
I see.
Women.
Well, like Kathy Bates and...
Annie.
Yeah, and the girl from The Loved Ones.
Yeah, Lola.
Lola from The Loved Ones, yeah. I'm not sure. Fill me in.
Pamela Voorhees, of course.
Of course, yeah.
The first one.
Yeah.
There's the woman in Scream 2, whose name I just didn't write down.
Yeah.
And the witch, of course, from The Witch.
Right.
From men, now this is where it gets a little congested.
Yeah.
There's about 30 men.
Okay.
But that's including groups.
Okay.
So obviously you've got your single players, Michael Myers. I've put Jason Voorhees in here because he's a man, even if he is dead. Ernst Stavro Blofeld, Fitzgerald, Kylo Ren, all the bad men,
all the big hitters, yeah,
exactly. But then you've got the families, so the Hill family, and the Hill Survivors, or Leatherface and his family, or Immortan Joe and his family, and the War Boys, of course, which is actually an army. So it really skews the numbers. I've gone for named characters here. The Nazi punks, the enemy of the survivalists, who all seem to be men, Angel, the troglodytes, all men. A very male-dominated battlefield for survival. And then, of course, that brings us to non-humans.
Yeah. So is this including, obviously, natural disasters, situational things like being up Mount Everest, etc., but does it include Bigfoot?
Bigfoot's in.
Okay. And various other monsters, I presume?
Well, we've got It from It Follows.
Okay.
Xenomorphs from the Alien franchise. Dinosaurs. Mount Everest. An iceberg. Mars. Jaws. Or sharks in general. Brown bears. Black bears. Krampus. Fire and water.
Yeah.
Black Phillip.
Of course, yeah.
Aliens in 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Right.
And Aliens in Independence Day.
Yeah.
The Outlook Hotel.
Yeah.
Chucky. He's appearing twice. Fine.
Yeah.
And a coherence event.
Right.
So a metaphysical anomaly.
Right, okay.
So yeah, it's quite a lot to contend with this year.
Yeah, it's a busy bunch of films, isn't it? But, Joe, there can only be two finalists duking it out for the single place.
Yeah.
The golden ticket into the How to Survive Survivors Hall of Fame. And we are now ready to reveal the two finalists. You may have guessed them already, just by process of elimination, or, maybe they tally with the ones that you think should have been in the top 2. But Joe, would you like to reveal the top 2 survivors of the year?
In no particular order, we've got Erin from the movie You're Next,
covered in episode 32.
and we've got Ellen Ripley from the Alien franchise.
Yes, she's in Alien, which was episode 4, and Aliens, which we covered in episode 37. So that's Erin from You're Next and Ellen Ripley from Aliens.
Now, I notice you're saying aliens plural,
Yes.
but none of our other contestants were able to enter for more than one film, so perhaps we should narrow it down.
Yeah, well, I think when we discussed it off air, letting the listener behind the curtain again, we thought she has more of an active role. She's more of an active survivor in Aliens.
Correct.
So the film for which she is nominated is Aliens.
And just to clarify, it's because in Alien, she basically takes advantage of the very few opportunities she gets. She doesn't create her own chances as much.
No.
But she does. Yeah, she takes more of a leadership role.
Yeah.
In Aliens.
So let's talk about the 2 survivors then. So
Okay.
both women, as
Yes.
the stats would bear out, in very different scenarios, in a lot of ways, but also, there are some similarities. There are some similarities between both the individuals and the films in which they star.
Correct.
So some of the similarities, Joe, both films pit the survivor against a larger number of theoretically superior enemies.
Yes. When you say theoretically, I would say the xenomorphs.
The xenomorphs are definitely superior.
Yes, they
because
are.
they are the ultimate killing machine.
Yeah.
In Your Next, Erin is up against the group of hired killers
Yeah.
who, given that killing is their profession, they are, in theory, they are more equipped.
Yeah.
Especially as they have the advantage in terms of number, in terms of equipment, and, the element of surprise.
They start out well,
They do, yeah.
then it goes downhill.
Both of the films have elements of what you might call a siege movie.
Mm-hmm.
So, they're trapped in a confined space. They've got all these enemies, that are out to do them harm, be them xenomorphs or men.
Yeah.
And they have to deal with that situation. And both protagonists in that situation are shown to be highly capable and hardy individuals. Would you agree that all those characteristics apply to both of those characters?
How could I argue? How could I argue with such survivorship skills?
Yeah.
Yeah. Although I would say, I think we mentioned this, you touched on it just now. Ripley faces the xenomorphs.
Yes.
Who are, like you said, the ultimate killing machine.
Yeah. They are defined as such by Ash in Alien.
Falls in love with them on that basis.
Yeah, because he describes them as they're basically the perfect organism for killing.
I don't think Ash would have the same to say about the Davidson family's hired killers.
That's true. Yeah, they are. While they are, shown to be somewhat competent.
Yeah, they got a good shot away from the kid at the beginning.
Yeah, and they murder a lot of people. If their goal is clearly to murder the whole family, other than the people who've hired them. And they managed to do that, nearly.
Yeah, they didn't reckon with one of the people there being raised in a survivalist's camp.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So Erin is raised in a survivalist camp. Ellen Ripley
was not.
But she... Now, should that count for or against her, Joe, when we're talking about this? Because she, in the events of Aliens, she's teamed up with a group of Marines and sort of ends up taking over, taking control of them by the end of the film.
Sure.
So that surely counts in her favour.
Yeah, you think so?
I mean, she's not a military person.
Yeah, it's second nature to survive for Erin from Your Next because she was raised on it.
Yeah. It's literally second nature. Yeah, it's what she's grown up with.
Yeah, exactly. She doesn't even have to think when she's doing it. So is that the same as a masterclass in survival that Ellen Ripley gives us? She has to outthink the enemy.
Yeah.
Whereas Erin seems to just lay traps because she knows what they're going to do ahead of them.
Yeah. And let's not forget that in terms of reckoning with an unfamiliar enemy, Erin she may not know the identities of her attackers initially, but she can be fairly certain that they don't have acid for blood.
That's true.
Whereas Ripley knows for certain, to a certainty, that the xenomorphs do, following her experiences in the first Alien film.
Correct.
So it's difficult, isn't it? There are so many.
She is also drawing on her training, in a sense.
But Ripley is a warrant officer, basically.
What does that involve?
Well, officiating warrants.
Of course.
But it's an administrative role, essentially.
Yeah.
It's got an assigned military rank, but that's a tokenistic thing.
Which is more of a merchant navy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's the equivalent of being the captain of a merchant navy ship. You might not have a particular acumen when it comes to war, which is essentially what she finds herself in the events of Aliens.
Exactly. So fair enough. So Ripley wins a point there.
Yeah. She also faces greater numbers, it has to be said.
Yeah.
There are about 6 enemies in Your Next for Erin to contend with.
I think there's 4 sort of masked men and then a few family members and the girlfriend and stuff. So,
yeah, exactly. So, maybe 7 if you include her boyfriend. But yeah, so she has about 6 or 7 people to contend with. Ripley has an entire nest of xenomorphs.
Yeah, although only 32 die, so on screen.
Right, but countless more die off screen, presumably.
Yes, well, she blows up the planet.
She blows up the planet with a nuclear strike.
Yeah.
Well, the ship, at least.
Is that the biggest
kill count?
Yeah.
Very possibly.
Yeah.
Certainly by a protagonist.
Yes.
And that that has to count in her favour.
Yeah. Because that's going to ensure the survival of not only her but future generations. And that's to be commended.
Let's not forget the range of skills both candidates show during their survival attempts as well. Both of them show an ability with weapon-based combat, be it handheld weapons, firearms, projectile weapons, setting traps. Erin sets various traps around the house.
Yep.
Ripley sets up or helps set up gun turrets to shoot the xenomorphs.
Yeah, exactly.
So they both demonstrate their range of skills.
I'd say when it comes to being handy in a Jason Bourne kind of way, Erin probably does tip the balance there. But that's because, as we said, she was born to do it. As Craig David would say. Yeah.
Another thing with Erin is that she has to eventually detach emotionally in order to survive, because her boyfriend is revealed to be one of the backers of the initial attack, basically one of the funders, because he wanted the rest of his family dead. At which point she murders him, obviously killing her boyfriend, the man that she thought she loved.
Yeah. And we did discuss at the time, is that the best thing you can do? Because he's a rich man. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I don't think it's unfair to say that Ripley does not have such an emotional dilemma.
No.
She does, however, have to rescue Newt.
Yes, and she does. She also has to rescue Hicks when he gets injured.
And so when we're considering who is the best survivor out of these two, rescuing other people, should we, that should be a big tick.
Yeah, it's one of our criteria. Do they help the people around them? Erin does not. She kills people around her.
Yeah.
But that is to her benefit.
Yeah, although her potential saviour at the end of the film is the police officer that arrives.
Yes.
And she actually killed him.
Yeah, inadvertently.
But it's her carelessness, or it's certainly her actions that lead to his death.
Yeah. So innocent victims in the wake. Yeah. Reckless behaviour.
Yeah. I mean, it's understandable given the context, but it's that is a big tick in Ripley's column, isn't it?
What's it looking like at the moment?
Well, it certainly seems to be tipping one way, Joe. I don't know whether you agree.
If we were to look at the events that happen after the film, and it's a bit of an assumption to think about what's going to happen to Erin afterwards, but there's a good chance she's going to go to prison, or that she'll end up in a psych ward of some kind.
Yeah.
It's not going to end well for her, basically. Ripley, however, could well live a healthy life. Yeah.
If you look at the ending, obviously she's into the cryo sleep again. She could potentially live for hundreds of years.
And she already has lived for decades.
Yeah, because she's been frozen once before.
Does that make her the longest survivor after the event?
Potentially, depending on how long she's in stasis after the events of the first film. After the events of Aliens.
Yeah.
Maybe if we cover Alien 3, we'll have to investigate
Find out.
that.
She could take the mantle from Rose DeWitt.
Yes. So let's look at the scores on the doors here, Joe.
Okay.
So Erin, she did very well.
Yeah.
She had to improvise. She has to use various types of weaponry. She displays great skill in utilising them. She does the classic How to Survive thing of taking the opportunities that are presented to her. She's very brutal. She carried a lot of favour with us when we covered that episode.
She's been a fan favourite as well. A few listeners have suggested. Crazy Mr. Frank on Twitter, he's been in there saying, it should be Erin from You're Next.
But then Ripley, Joe, she's facing her nightmares basically.
Yeah.
And she's on she's in an unfamiliar location. She's taking command of a ragtag bunch of Marines. She's utilising, assault weaponry, assault vehicles, gun turrets, a mechanised suit, engaging in hand-to-hand combat with a ferocious alien species.
Yeah. Of various sizes and kinds.
And let's not forget, Joe, she rescues a number of people, human and android, and then blows up a nest of the xenomorphs, killing potentially millions of them, potentially saving millions of lives. We can't necessarily put a price on that. Erin, at the end of the film, she's wounded. She's been shot by the police officer. She's in a house full of men that she's murdered. She's the only remaining witness, and she's just accidentally or otherwise murdered a police officer. Ripley, at the end of her movie, Aliens, she's in cryosleep and she's going on to pastures new. So,
with a new boyfriend and a new daughter.
There you go, a happy family and a pet android. Yeah. So with all those elements taken into consideration, Joe, what do we think?
I think it would be remiss of us to decide any other way. Then welcome to the Hall of Fame, Ellen Ripley.
So yes, Ellen Ripley is our inaugural entry into the How to Survive Survivors Hall of Fame. Erin was an excellent candidate, it has to be said. A worthy runner-up.
Yeah, very handy. She's very Jason Bourne-esque. A female Jason Bourne.
You wouldn't rule out the notion of her breaking in just as Jason Bourne did.
Yeah.
So Jason Bourne and Ellen Ripley are together in a wonderful union in the How to Survive Survivors Hall of Fame.
Yep.
As our best and brightest.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So they've both got a bright future ahead of them as well.
Yes.
Bourne comes out this year, Jason Bourne, and a new Alien film next year.
Alien Covenant, I believe.
Is that what it's called?
I think so.
Another stupid word.
So yes, just to recap the top 5, Joe. Number 5, Rose DeWitt from Titanic. Number 4, Chev Chelios from Crank.
Is that you?
Number 3, Mark Watney from The Martian. Number 2, Erin from You're Next. But our number 1 for the 2016 How to Survive Survivors Hall of Fame gold medal is, of course, cinematic legend Ellen Ripley.
And very well done to her.
So thank you very much for listening over these last 50 episodes. And of course, it would be remiss of us not to include some of your feedback and thoughts.
As mentioned, Crazy Mr. Frank was on Twitter. He wanted Erin. He wanted her, but, it didn't work out for you. Sorry, Crazy Mr. Frank. We've had an email in from Callum, who says he recommends Jason goes into the Hall of Fame.
Okay, interesting.
He's been down more times than Rasputin, but he just kept coming. I would quibble with this because he is actually dead by this point.
Yeah, the the definitions become a little bit cloudy.
Yeah, because at the end of every movie so far, he has been assumed dead.
Yeah.
The fact that he comes back in the next film, because you can only go on the basis of each film.
Yeah.
And he's been beheaded, he's been thrown out of windows, stabbed. For that reason, and for the fact that he kills lots of people, I don't think we can have him in.
One of our criteria is is helping others around you survive.
Exactly.
Jason is very much the antithesis of that.
Another email comes from Hannah. She recommends M from Coherence, who, as we said, a bold notion, but at the end of the day, she fucked up by leaving various versions of herself alive in the same existence.
Yes, unfortunately for her.
Yeah.
Kelly emails in and suggests James Bond, obviously.
Yeah.
He's survived all of this time. What is it, 25 films now?
Yeah.
And she says, he is a cinematic legend and surely he should be inducted. I mean, he's very similar. He's very close to Jason Bourne.
He is, yeah. But a little less calculated.
Yeah, effective, efficient.
Yeah. He is what I'd call a reactionary rather than a revolutionary.
Yeah. He's very much the recent James Bond films have very much been in the mould of Jason Bourne.
Yeah.
So, maybe next James Bond film we cover, maybe his survival skills will be more on show.
Yeah, exactly. We can only hope. Sam emails in and he says, I've been listening along to the minisodes and I'm hoping that this means Furiosa will be in the Survivors Hall of Fame. A bold notion, Sam. But obviously she isn't, so tough luck. But there is a reason for that. And Furiosa is one of a few people we recognised as mixed doubles champions.
Yeah.
And those are Owen and Claire from Jurassic World.
That was episode 4.
Jack and Annie from Speed.
Episode 29.
Obviously Max and Furiosa in Mad Max Fury Road.
Episode 35, we covered that film.
Pat and Amber in Green Room.
Episode 45.
And Wendy and Danny in The Shining.
Episode 47.
Now, these survivors all did well. They survived the film, and they are, of course, worthy of a mention. However, they both required each other to survive.
Yes. And, whether you agree with it or not, the Survivors Hall of Fame is an individual award.
Yes.
Each time I'm sure we'll go through, we'll highlight some of the best, as you say, mixed doubles. And Max and Furiosa, they were great. They took on 3 separate armies, single-handedly in the case of Furiosa. And, they did spectacularly well. I'd say, Pat and Amber, they would be right up there for me as well.
Yeah, also single-handedly.
Yeah, very much. It's a theme carrying on here. Yeah, but they rely on one another, so it's difficult to pick one of them specifically to award as a great example of survival technique.
And so neither of them get it.
No, but we're mentioning them now, and thanks very much for the email, Sam.
So that's all we've got time for in this year's Survivors Hall of Fame. Hope you've enjoyed it. Obviously a little different to our normal remit. Yeah. So next week we're returning to the predictable and
regularly featured programming.
Yes. What is it, episode 51?
It's episode 51. What could we be covering, I wonder?
Jason Lives!
Oh, it's going to be fucking great.
But the week after that's The Omen, so that'll be nice.
Yeah. If you've got any thoughts on either of those films, get in touch at the usual addresses. That's at HowToSurvivePod on Twitter, HowToSurviveShow@gmail.com if you want to email in. And obviously you can leave any feedback for us on iTunes. If you rate and review us, we'd really appreciate it. And let us know what you thought of this last week of Survivor-sodes, mini-episodes, or whatever you want to call them. And, if it's a format that you like, then let us know. If it's a format that you hate with a burning passion, then please let us know and we will never mention it again.
Yeah. Except every episode.
Every episode will be a Hall of Fame episode.
Chris, thank you for a wonderful 50 episodes.
Joe, it's been a pleasure.
And I'll see you next week.